이 popsicle name.
All right, good morning everybody. Welcome to another Freestyle Real-Time Dev AMA Q&A live stream. My name's Kevin. We do these twice a week right now. Basically this was it's a Q&A for you to come and ask questions about Unreal Engine, blueprints, basically real-time dev, game development, virtual production, visual scripting, basically anything, plugins, processes, everything that applies to development, real-time development, and we're using Unreal Engine as our backdrop. I have not even been in front of a computer for over a week, so my brain is completely scattered this morning, but we're going to go ahead and get started and hop in with a few things. So let me just double check all of our streams, make sure all of our audio is working like that, and we will go ahead and get started. Yes, I believe I said my name is Kevin. But real quick intros, I currently work as a senior principal tech artist at Riot Games. I get to work in Unreal Engine every day, which is cool. I get to learn a lot every single day, but also there's a ton I don't know. And this is a chance for me to also learn from your questions as well, and a chance for you to come and ask questions of a live person. We're also kind of building a community of people who are just enthusiastic about doing all these new real-time dev exciting things. So that's a little bit about me. Generally the way this works is we have a quick little recap on my own working prototype that I'm working towards. There is no update today because I took a full week off. I haven't touched the computer in a week. So there's nothing there. And then we basically hop in and answer questions. If we run out of questions, that's not a problem. I will just go in and just do some live troubleshooting and development on my own project, just to kind of fill the time. Questions take priority though, so I am interruptible at any time. Now I need to take a look at Twitch and YouTube, make sure we don't have any actual live questions. I went back through our recent streams, and holy goodness, take a deep breath. I need to slow down. Went back and took a look at some of our most recent streams, and I didn't see any questions there. We did have a couple questions that came in that we'll go over as we get started here. So let me just double check our streams here real quick, and we'll go from there. All right. I hope everybody is doing well this Wednesday. Another quick other announcement is we had spoken previously. We're going to be changing the times of these streams. We're going to try to make them a little bit more convenient. I believe we're going to try to shoot for probably around 11:30 on Sundays and Wednesdays. I will schedule those in YouTube so you can see those and follow those and put those on your calendar. That is going to be Pacific Standard Time. Hopefully that covers enough time zones, and then based on feedback and what you all think, we can add other or switch times in the future, etc. So with that, let's hop back into Unreal. And also we want to make sure that our stream is actually working, because it's been a little while. Okay, looks good. Now, so to start off with, as I had mentioned, I don't have any specific dev updates with my prototype. Well, we may get back to that later, but to start off with, I got we have a general question that popped in Somebody sent me a note. Also, feel free to hop into our Discord server and ask questions there. Kick in chat with other real-time enthusiasts. So the first question that we're going to talk about has to do with components. And it was more just a general question about components. If I could explain a little bit about when do we use them, why are we using them, some of the advantages, and so on. So let's take a look at that. Now, first off, let's just, I guess, start with what a component is. And a component for an actor or a blueprint in this case is almost exactly what it sounds like. It's a little piece that you can attach to another blueprint that allows you to compartmentalize and do stuff. Now, there's different kinds of things that you might want to do with a component. For example, you might have a health bar component. You might have a name tag component. You could have a shield component, a targeting component, a material managing component. You can have lots of components for a lot of different things. But the question is, why? Why would you have a component? And there's actually a couple different answers to that, and there's a little bit of it also sort of depends. So let's take a look at a couple of things. First off, how do you create a component? Well, usually if you just right click, you can effectively, in here, if we create a new blueprint class, and we bring this over, if we type component, pawn component, there's different kinds of components. Scene components, camera components, there's all kinds of different ones. Okay? And in this case, if you just wanted to create if we just wanted to create an actor component. We can create one, and we'll just select this. Generally speaking, I've seen these called component something, and this is going to be tutorial, for example. So that's how you create a component, and depending on what kind of component you're creating, you would generally choose a different class. And when you open a component, it has a lot of the same features as just a normal blueprint. It has begin play, it has tick, it has all those things. So all of this should be familiar if you are familiar with blueprints. Now, once you have created your component, it's not going to do anything until you start adding to it, obviously. And in this case, let's just for demo's sake, let's put a print string in here. We're going to put a print string on tick. Now, this component is not attached to anything yet. I haven't added it to a character or another blueprint, so this print is not going to do anything. And we're going to call this, we're going to print tutorial component. And we're going to change in our class defaults, let's change our tick interval to 3, for example. So we'll go 3 seconds on this component. Now, so we've created a component. It's a pretty boring component, but that's okay, because we're just kind of explaining a couple of practices of it. Now let's go to our character, and let's take a look at our, in this particular case, for this example, I'm using the shooter mannequin. And what I want to do is I want to add a component. So over here in the top left, this is where we add components to other actors, etc. in Unreal. And you'll also notice down here, I already have a couple. I have my targeting component and my shield component. So if I want to add this component, all I have to do is click add, and I can choose, I should be able to type in here component, and you can see I have this tutorial component. Now, once I add this tutorial component, that is now part of this actor. So if we go into our game and we press play, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen. I'm going to make sure I have no enemies spawning, so I don't have to worry about this. So what's going to happen is we're going to press play. Our character is going to get spawned, and part of the spawn process for Hero Shooter Mannequin is it's going to go through all of these components. It's going to create that component, attach it to the character, and that is now going to be part of my character. So if I press play, theoretically, every so many seconds, you'll see in the top left, it is actually printing tutorial component. Okay, so now we've created a component, we've added it to our character, and we see what happens when we press play. So, okay, that's great. That's how we create components. But when do we use components? Why do we use components? Well, there's a couple reasons. So one of the nice things, and this is even before all of the new game feature plugin stuff and everything that happened with Unreal Engine 5, one of the nice things about having a component is it gives you Legos, building blocks to work with. For example, if you had a nameplate component, this is a great example. Maybe you only need nameplates on the player. You don't need it on the enemies. So in that case, you have a nameplate component and you have your character component, you have your character actor, and then you have your player and you have your enemy. And what you do is you only put the nameplate component on the player. So it is a way to have Legos of pieces that you can use effectively so that you can choose which actors get which components. All right, so that's one thing. It allows you to compartmentalize things and make them reusable. It's very easy now for me to add this tutorial component to all of the different characters. Let's make another example. Health bar. Health bar might only be visible on enemies. I may not put it on players as an example. But now that I have created a health bar component, every single enemy in the game, I can just drag and drop that component onto that enemy, and now it's there. The other great thing about using components is if you are working in a multi-developer team, and let's say that you need to work on the player, okay? Well, if everything is just de facto on the player, let's say the shield, the health bar, everything, it's all part of the main player blueprint, then what happens is if developer person 1 is working on the player and I need to update the shield, I can't work on that shield because maybe the developer person 1 is working on the health bar. Okay, well, because they're working on the health bar, they have that character checked out, they're working on it. I can't also be working on the shield at the same time because our changes would potentially stomp on each other. And especially if you're using version control, you can't both work on it at the same time. But if the health bar is a component and the shield is a component, now we can have as many developers as we have components all working on the character at the same time. So in that particular case, it's really great in a multi-developer environment, and it also helps compartmentalize problems for troubleshooting. There's lots of different things. So that doesn't necessarily mean that everything should be a component, but it's actually one of the a couple of quick things about what it is specifically about how a component works and why we use them, and some of the development advantages of having components. So hopefully that was helpful as an answer for that one. And our second question, obviously, if you have any, for those of you who are watching this after the fact or whatever, if you have any other questions or there's specific things about components you would like me to dig into, feel free to throw those questions in the comments or throw them on Discord, and I can either reply to those specifically, or we can even do a more in-depth discussion on components in the future. But that is a very quick, this is how you add a component, name it, put it on a character, see it working, and then some of the pluses and minuses. Although I can't think about a ton of minuses right now. Okay, so that wraps up that component question. Now let's take a look at our next question, which is actually a lot of fun. And basically the general gist of the question is the developer has a skeletal mesh and they have a single animation, and they're trying to share that animation across multiple skeletons that are slightly different. All right, the second skeleton in this case has 2 added bones. Now, here's the trick with this, and what's not clear from the question is where the bones are added, and this is sort of key. Okay, so if you are going to share animations, and there's multiple ways now to share animations, and it's which one you choose is largely going to depend on your project. But anyways, if you're going to share animations, if you have a core skeleton, if you have another skeleton that has 2 added bones, if you added the bones as a leaf bone, and what do I mean by leaf bone? What I mean is, let's say that you have your spine, and it goes spine 0, 1, 2, neck, and then head, and then you add, and let's say every character has that spine, okay? Then you create a new skeleton that has a leaf bone, and let's say the leaf bone is hat, okay? If you import that new character with the hat bone, and you import that, and you select that skeleton as the original skeleton, your base core skeleton, your original skeleton for your new hat character, what's going to happen is Unreal Engine is going to say, oh, I have a new bone. I need to add it to my core skeleton, and I'm going to try to merge those. So what's going to actually happen is when you import your second skeleton, it's actually going to update your core skeleton to add a hat bone. So all of your characters have a hat bone now. That is not the way I would recommend doing this, but just stick with me here for a second. So if you have leaf bones, it will generally not have any problem merging your skeletons because it doesn't create a conflict. Now, let's say that you have spine 0, 1, 2, 3, neck, and head, and you add another spine joint. Okay, so what you do is you take and you go spine 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, neck, and head. That spine 4 is not a leaf bone. It actually changes the hierarchy. So how does Unreal resolve that? It doesn't know how to do it. And so if, depending on where you add these extra bones, it can create a merge issue. Now, adding a spine 4, it might be able to handle merging the bones. But if, for example, you renamed spine 2 to spine 02 instead, or something like that, that could create an actual conflict that it doesn't know how to resolve, and you would get a failed to merge bones. So the way you add bones is important because it dramatically changes how your characters, the compatibility of your characters. Now, that said, with the advent of Unreal 5, there's actually a ton of different ways to drive a second skeleton, and a lot of them are almost free. So let's talk about a couple of these. First off, if I was going to add a leaf bone at the top right now, especially if I was working towards my own prototype and learning Unreal, or I was in a phase where I was still figuring out what everything was going to look like, I would actually keep that second skeleton as its own skeleton. So I would have effectively 2 full characters. I'd have my biped, let's say we're working with bipeds. I would have a biped core or base, which is the base skeleton. And that is going to have all of the main default joints: spine 0, 1, 2, 3, neck and head, shoulder, elbow, hand, hip, knee, foot, for example. That should be in every biped skeleton I want to import in my game. And then after that, however I add things, extra toe joints, hat joints, even if I do change something about the way the elbows work or etc., by adding additional joints, there are other ways to drive that skeleton. So in this case, let's just talk about the leaf case. Let's say I add toes. What I would do for the second character that I import is I would actually import that as a completely new skeletal mesh in its own skeleton. And then I would add, and this is where we get to the new Unreal Engine 5 stuff, I would add a compatibility with the original core skeleton. When I add that compatibility with the core skeleton, what that means is my 5-finger toe skeleton now can use all of the animations from the core, plus anything that I've animated on it specifically. And I get that for, I mean, it's almost free. So that's one way to do it. You can use skeleton compatibility mode. Another way you can do it is you can use copy pose from mesh, or they now call it leader pose, I believe. So in your Unreal Engine animation blueprint, what you can do is you can set up a driver skeleton, and your driver skeleton would be your core skeleton, and then you can do the copy pose, it used to be called, now I believe it's leader pose, and then that can drive your skeleton. Another way you can do this is you can do this with live IK retargeting. You can also do this with a control rig. There's lots of ways to do this now. And there is actually a really great video on that Unreal Epic put out where they go through all of these different options using some of the Fortnite gear stuff. So what I will do is I will track down that video and post it, because they basically go through each of those scenarios pretty succinctly, and it's a great video to watch. So in that particular case, hopefully that covers the question about importing a second skeleton with added bones and some of the considerations that go into that. So it's something to keep in mind. It is totally doable. It just needs a little bit of planning on what you're going to do, and you want to consciously be deciding whether or not you're actually going to be changing your core skeleton as a result of your new character, or you actually need that as a new character, etc. Now, another thing that's worth mentioning is why do we do all this? Why do we use compatibility mode? Why do we use control rig or IK retargeting, all these different things? Imagine you were making a gear-based game, something like Fortnite. Which isn't necessarily gear. Skin. There's lots of different skins in Fortnite. There's lots of different potential like accessories that you might purchase, or different cool little skins and backpacks and all these kinds of things. Every single time let's just say we had one skeleton, only one, and every single character in our game shared that skeleton, and then we decided we were going to sell different backpacks. And maybe the first backpack is just a single backpack joint, and it adds a jiggle on it, so when our character runs through our game, the backpack jiggles. Great. That's just one joint. But then, the art director comes along and says, we got this cool idea for a new backpack that has a fishing pole on it, and it's going to bounce. So now you have a backpack, and then you have all these extra joints for the fishing pole to be able to make it move. If you import that onto your core skeleton, now your core skeleton has all the main core joints for biped, plus it has backpack, and now it has backpack fishing pole. So let's say you make 10 backpacks and they all have different accessories on them. Every single one of those new joints gets added to your core skeleton. And then all of a sudden, the art director comes along and says, we're going to sell hats. Art director combined with, your game director, they're like, we're going to monetize hats. We're going to sell hats too. And some of our hats have tassels, and we have jester hats. And so now all of a sudden your core skeleton has backpacks in it, it has hats in it, every little accessory under the sun. You either have to make sure every single one of those joints is named exactly the same, or you're going to end up with what I've heard commonly referred to as skeleton bloat. Every new accessory, every new joint is going to change the number of joints of your core skeleton. And what that means is even your base character with no backpacks is going to be running around with all of the different backpack option joints, all of the different hat joints, all of the different accessories as part of it. Now, theoretically, Unreal might be smart enough to cull out all those joints that aren't being used, but why? Why worry about that when you can use a lot of these cool things like compatibility modes, animation blueprint, copy pose from mesh, leader pose stuff, as well as IK retargeting and control rig retargeting. And then let's say you realize, as an example, that you made your new backpack wrong with the fishing rod and you need to change the joints in it. If you do that and you've imported it onto your core skeleton, now every single time if you made an update to that fishing pole, you're going to have to rebuild not only your core skeleton, but it's going to rebuild every single animation in your game. You're gonna have to check out all of that stuff and redo all of it. So especially from a fast development, fast prototype standpoint, it's actually really cool and powerful to take advantage of a lot of these new features for skeletons in Unreal Engine 5. So that covers our 2 questions that we had sent in, and I'm just double checking. I'm just double checking to see if we had any other further questions come in, and it does not look like we did. So what we're going to do with the last half, while we wait for more questions, is we're going to hop in back to our game. And like I said, I'm just double checking that there weren't any other questions. Okay, I think we're good. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hop back into my prototype, kind of wrap our heads around where we were, and wait for any other questions that might come in. So with that, let's take a look at a couple things that might be fun. We'll delete that later. Let's talk about where we left off. Is we were feeling pretty good about where melee was and our combo system, which was great. We have our evades. So what I thought might be cool and could feel epic, there's a couple things that we might be able to do this morning. One is we could make it so that when we evade, every now and then we get this cool cinematic camera that kind of goes in the direction of our evade, so we can kind of see ourselves, and maybe that might feel cool without taking away from gameplay. That might be one thing we could do. The other one that we've got is if we come back in here, we have a problem with grenades, and we need to sort this out. There's a couple problems. One is especially with our frost grenades. So let's just change this to a frost grenade. First off, over here on the right, we're going to make this a frost grenade. Now, when we play, if we come down here and we pick up our frost grenade, we need to get rid of this tutorial component. So you'll notice I have frost grenades now in my UI. And if I switch to frost grenades, technically I've switched to it, but if I left click, I can't throw them. I don't understand why. If I drop the grenades, you'll see they drop. And then if I walk over and pick them up, now if I go to grenades and throw, you'll notice that they throw. So what is it about the first time that we're not setting properly where we can't throw our grenades right away? So there's got to be something, and we need to track that down. The other thing that happens is when we throw the grenade as a player, you'll notice that as I walk through and it goes off, it slowly starts to freeze me and then starts to actually do its stuff. I think that's too slow from a gameplay perspective, because if I throw a grenade at an enemy, and let's see here, let's see if we can't do this. Let's go to spawn point 1 and let's take and add 1 enemy. If we press play and we go pick up our grenades, drop our grenades, drop our grenades, pick up our grenades, switch to our grenades. Now, if that character is coming at me and I throw a grenade at it, it's able to move out of it, actually, and still fire, actually. Where did he get a gun? So we'll bounce a grenade. So he's basically still able to move, still able to target, there's a bunch of problems with this grenade. So I threw a grenade, but it didn't blow up fast enough to actually do anything. So that's just kind of an example of one of the things that we need to figure out with these grenades. So let's just take a look at these grenades real quick. First off, let's get rid of our enemies. And let's get rid of this component tutorial from our hero, so it's not printing all the time. Do that by deleting it. Compile and save. All right. Now, when we play, we're going to do some live troubleshooting of these grenades. All right. First off, if I take a look at my equipment, you'll see that I have sword, inventory. Okay, so I have no inventory, and I have two swords. I do. I have my great sword, and I have my regular sword. So that print is accurate. Now let's pick up our grenade, and let's do print again on our equipment. So now we have frost grenade, sword, and inventory. Now, what's interesting is our abilities. Oh, do we have the grenade ability? Jump, dash, evade, emote, drop weapon, spawn, frost grenade. We do have a frost grenade ability. Okay, so let's take a look to see if we're even triggering that ability. To do that, let's look for our GA frost grenade. So here's our frost grenade, and what we'll do is we'll put a breakpoint in on the activate ability. Okay, so our frost grenade is equipped, and if I press the left trigger, it doesn't fire. Nothing's happening. If I drop the frost grenade and I pick it up and I re-equip it and I fire, it does trigger. So there is something that is happening that is preventing me from triggering this ability when we when we left click. So let's see if we can figure out what that might be. And what the difference is between picking it up from the pickup versus picking it up as a dropped item. Now, when we're gonna have to remember this. When we drop, what does it do? Drop weapon. Okay, take a look at our drop weapon. So what's going to happen when we drop the weapon is we're going to activate it. We're going to check to see if we can do it. La-di-da-di-da. We're going to remove the item from our slot. We're going to get the item definition. And if it's a magless weapon, we are going to drop the ammo map for gameplay tags. Otherwise, we're going to set the ammo map to magazine ammo and spare ammo. Magazine ammo and spare ammo. So what it's doing is it's putting, look at this. So this is a difference. If it's a magless weapon, we're putting the value of however many grenades you have in the magazine ammo, as opposed to spare ammo. Now, let's see, I want to see one other thing. We pick this up. If we look at our inventory, you'll notice that I have ammo 3, quantity 0. Okay. Get rid of our inventory. Messed up again. Drop the grenade. Pick it up. We look at our inventory. We have ammo 3, quantity 0. It's the same. So that doesn't look like our problem. But this is basically the map. And then we're spawning an actor with stat tag. And the stat tags we're spawning it with is, again, for a magless weapon, going in the magazine ammo. And in our here, this is our stat tag for magazine ammo. This should work. Interesting. Let's try changing this to 3, for example. I now have 6 grenades. And, ooh, look at that. Okay, something's funky. So, it's because... Can I throw all 6 of these? No, I can't throw the last 3. Okay, so basically what we have is there's something about our frost grenade that is starting with 3 grenades, but they're not actually equipable. So let's take a look at our frost grenade. Because when we actually put it in the magazine ammo, that worked. And that ID was frost grenade. Let's look at our item definition for a frost grenade. So here we go. And this is in just the whole modularity of this. So notice that we have a magazine size of 3, ammo of 3, and spare ammo of 3. It's kind of weird. I want to do this. I'm gonna change this to zeros. If I do that, and I come and pick up this frost grenade, I can't pick, there's nothing there to pick up. So let's see here, magazine ammo, let's go 3 on that. Sure, we'll check this out. And then let's press play again. Okay, so we have 3, and we can throw them. Okay, so the problem is grenades don't understand. Okay, so we fixed one thing. We fixed it so now whenever we pick up grenades, they will just work. So let's do this. Let's check a couple things. With our pickups, we have the ability to set them to auto respawn. And what we can do is auto refill and respawn item. We'll change it to every 2 seconds. That way we can quickly test this, and then we will play. Now, when we come down here and we pick up these grenades, you'll notice that now my timer is working and there's a new set of grenades there. So a couple things we need to check. First off, 1, 2, 3. I can throw 3 grenades, great. Now I have no grenades. Okay, if I walk back over this grenade, I now have 3 grenades again. 1, 2, 3. That's working great. Okay, so now let's pick up this grenade. Now what happens if I walk over it again? It doesn't look like I can pick up anymore. So I am limited to 3 grenades. If I throw 1, I walk over it. It's 3. Interesting. Okay, the grenades are now working kind of the way I originally intended them to. You can only carry 3 grenades. There is no idea of spare grenades. And what happens is, you'll notice I have 0 grenades when I walk over this. I now have 1 grenade because there was 1 left on the stack. If I go over the stack again, I'm only picking up 1 at a time. That's interesting. That time I picked up 1. Something is definitely weird there. Let's drop that grenade. It's only respawning 1 grenade at a time. So there is something wrong with our respawner now that it's only spawning 1 grenade at a time. But I don't think that's because of... So that's 3 grenades. If I drop this grenade here, that's not the grenades. If I drop the grenades here, I come over here and I pick up these grenades, I have 3. Oh, wild. Dude, we found a bug. Okay. If I throw all my grenades and I walk over this, you'll notice I pick up 3. If I throw 2 grenades and I walk over this, you'll notice I have 3 grenades, but now I believe we have broken our pickup. Now it only picks us up 1 grenade. So there's something about our math and our pickup that is causing this thing to, once after the first time, it only has 1 grenade each time. Now I have 3. So if I throw those 3 grenades, drop this grenade, and walk back over this, I'm only getting 1 grenade now. So I've done something. We've got this weird loop that's going on in our respawn here, but overall the grenades are working the way I want them to, in the sense that I can only carry 3 of them, and if I walk over... Okay, that's interesting. I just walked over that grenade. Oh, there was 1 left. Interesting. So I have 1. There was none there. Okay, we got a couple things to fix. So here's what we're gonna fix. Let's take a look at this. And this is gonna be in our equipment system. If I throw my last grenade, notice I still have grenades, but if I drop it, do you see how it drops it on the map? But then when I go to pick it up, I re-pick up grenades, but I don't actually have any of them. So here's what I'm talking about. If you drop a gun, it makes sense that the gun still exists in the map, because you might pick it up and then go find ammo later. If you are out of grenades, you're just out of grenade. So you shouldn't be able to drop empty grenades. So let's do this. If we're gonna drop a weapon and it's magless, which is here, true, then we're gonna set our map and we're going to spawn an actor. So basically right here, there's no logic in here for us to account for the fact that you don't actually have any grenades left to drop. So we should be able to do this pretty easily. And what we're going to do is this value is just going to end the ability, basically. I'm pretty sure. So false. If it's greater than 0, we're going to keep going. If it's false, we're going to end the ability. Oh, that's for the slot. We're going to remove the item from the slot. That's fine. We're going to get the item definition. So let's just put this right in here. We'll take this and we'll do a quick greater than on this. If it's greater than 0, we're going to keep going. So press the B key, create a branch. So if it's greater than 0, we keep going. This is for the magless side. And if not, we're going to end our ability. So let's just copy that and see if we can't fix this real quick. Now I don't actually like how spaghetti mess this is, so we'll come back and fix this again once we know it's working. Why is it? Oh, interesting, they deprecated. So this is something that happens as Unreal Engine upgrades. Get random point and navigable radius is been deprecated. If you're new to this, that basically means they're getting rid of it. And at any point in the future, it may be completely gone. So use get random location in navigable radius. So where is that? Okay, so get random location in navigable radius. So we'll just use this instead. Once again, making sure that we leave blueprints cleaner than when we found them. Oh, but it's not pure? Oh, wow. Okay. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by it's not pure? This is a pure function. It means that I can just run it. This is an actual inline, and I actually need to do this with its execute pins. So if this is true, we're going to do this. We are definitely gonna have to clean this up. Oh, wait. That's not where we want that. Undo. Oh, this kind of makes this a pain now, actually. Get random reachable point in radius. Bummer. Okay, so because of this if test, so we're going to set that. This needs to happen before. Radius is 50. And if that works, we're going to do that. And the origin is going to be here. Now, here's the problem. I believe this may change. All right, this is a little bit of a concern for me. Let me explain this to you real quick. The execution order of these pens is kind of in time and order. And this is a problem, for example, if we were going to do a random number. If this was a random number and I said get a random number and then I assign the random number, when I run this get random number, it gives me a random number. Then when I assign it, it gives me a new random number. So what I'm curious about is this going to generate two different points? One that it tests against and one that it actually when it sets it. So we may need to change this logic. And the easiest way to test this is to draw a debug sphere. So let's draw this. I think this is worth answering this question because I want to know if this is going to work. Draw debug sphere. Okay, and the center point that we are going to draw this sphere is going to be here. And we're going to say that this is going to be pink, a radius of 50, so it's reasonable, duration of 2 seconds, and a thickness of 1. So what this is going to do is, this is our logic, it's going to draw a debug sphere when it gets the random location, from the random location. Then I'm going to draw another sphere again. And the reason I'm going to do this is I want to see if these spheres are in two different places. And this one, we're going to make green, because this is the one that's actually getting assigned. And we are going to plug in the same thing we do here, just like we did before. I understand that this is messy and hard to read, but that's okay. So what's going to happen is when we drop this weapon, we should see two spheres. Well, if we see one sphere, then we know that it's the same value each time. If we see two, then it's changing and we have to change the way we're working. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, I only saw one there. Okay, this may be okay. Actually, let's double check this. There's an easy way to do this. In our drop weapon, if we change our radius of the original test to be 40, we can see both spheres at the same time. If they're in the same place, then this is not a problem. So we picked up our grenades, and now we're going to drop our grenades. They are in the same place. Okay, cool. That is not like the random number pure function, and that works just fine. So what that means is we can get rid of our drawings, and we can rely on this as being legit. Which is interesting to me because I did not think that that would be true. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to check this out. We have our drop locations. Everything is good. And we are going back to our testing, which was, got a little bit of sidetracked with some just basic blueprint understanding. What we're going to do, wait. Oh, dude, did you see that? My sword just disappeared. Okay, this is a problem. We have a problem. We've inadvertently created a disappearing sword. So if I have a grenade and I drop it, you'll notice it drops the grenade. That's great. If I pick up my grenade and I throw all my grenades, cool. Now, if I drop the grenade, you'll notice it just disappears. That's not really, that works. However, here's the problem. If we have our sword equipped and I drop it, I just vaporized it. My sword's vaporized now. That's gonna feel really cool as a player if I vaporize your sword because you accidentally dropped it. That's no bueno. So we need to think more about this. We don't want to do this based on whether or not this is 0 only. We also need to know if it's magless. So is it magless? We know that that's true. So the problem is our grenades are magless, apparently. Let's take a look. Class defaults. Frost grenade. Magless. Frost grenades are magless. Is that true though? Are they really magless? I'm gonna change this to 0. Because technically you're holding 3 of them, even if they're attached to your chest. Lucian hops in. Good morning, Lucian. I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm saying it like the League of Legends character because I might be slightly League of Legends biased since I work at Riot, but hopefully I'm saying your name right. Lucian, you're just checking out our arrays and maps. It was super helpful. That's awesome. We actually have trying to sort out what our next video is going to be in the visual scripting fundamentals. I think we talked about arrays. We do need to cover while loops actually, which I think would be another one, and then maybe a little bit of UI stuff. But if you have any specific requests for things that maybe aren't totally solid in your mind that would be good for us to include in our fundamentals, our visual scripting for basics, just let me know and I can get that going. Thanks for hopping in the live stream. Did you have any questions this morning, by the way? Because questions take priority. We answered 2 questions earlier. I'm not sure what time you hopped in, but okay, so we made our grenades magless, or they're no longer magless. Let's see if they still work. So can I still throw my grenades? I can. That's cool. And when I drop them, they disappear. Okay. Now if I take my sword, okay, I'm still vaporizing my sword. That's no bueno still. So we want to make sure, drop weapon, magless. Oh, we would only want to do that. Okay, so this would not be where we want to do this. We would want to do this in a different track. So we want this branch to happen down here. We want it to happen for magged items. So true is going to take over this spot. False is going to come into here. And true is going to feed into there. So messy. We are definitely going to be cleaning this up. So let's run this again. Here we go. What kind of stuff are you working on, Lucian? Okay, first off, if we drop our sword, does it vaporize? It does not. If we drop our other sword, does it vaporize? Nope. So I am now weaponless, which is cool. If I pick up my great sword, I can now equip it, and I hit our usual first run breakpoint. Okay, so now let's see if we can pick up our grenades still. We can. I have 3 of them. If I throw them, I can burn them all. If I drop them, they vaporize because they're just gone. That makes sense. Okay, so wait a minute. But I can't pick up new grenades. Why is that? Because I have grenades. Okay, something weird happened there. We've got a problem with our inventory system. Okay, so Lucian's currently trying to make a weapon. By the way, I read this stuff out loud because we have people on Twitch too. Currently trying to make a weapon and class system for my project. I was wondering how to properly utilize data asset structure and data table to make it properly. Holy goodness, that is a beefy question. So there's a lot of different answers to this, and it largely depends on the type of game that you're making. So are you just using like a default tutorial, or like the third person project as a starting point? Are you using the Lyra project as a starting point? What are you using as a starting point? So that's one thing. As far as how to properly utilize data assets and structs, that is going to largely depend on what you need to do. So, for example, you might use third-person project. I'm trying to make an ARPG. Okay, cool. So, structs, data assets, and data tables they're not all the same. So let's take structs out. Structs is just a container, a format for you to hold your variables in. Okay, it's not necessarily. It is a tool used by all your other data-driven elements. And in this particular case, your data assets and your data tables are going to be the things that drive it. Your data tables may contain structs, they may just contain information, etc. Now, a good example would be the damage done. Now, the damage done, if we take a look at let's take a look, for example, at our sword, our great sword. Okay, this is a curve table for the great sword, and this is a curve in it that has a combo, and this is the damage for the sword. So you might use a data table to, depending on the level of the sword or whichever sword you happen to be using, you may want to use a data table to set the damage done by it. But ultimately, depending on how you're setting up your ARPG, that may change because maybe you have a different item that multiplies the damage. So you may find that a data table is not right for damage for you. There may be another way of doing that. The data assets might be something that would contain all the information for it. So let's take a look at, for example, the item definition. No. The ability for the frost grenade, for example, this one that we're working with right now. You'll notice that there is a data asset for this frost grenade. So we have the gameplay ability for the frost grenade. Are you using the gameplay ability system, by the way? There's kind of a delay between the stream and the stuff. So, but anyways, let's just say, okay, so you're using gas, great. Okay, so for example, for this frost grenade, the data asset for the frost grenade, if we look at this, it has information. Yeah, dude, the gas system is a beast, and I am still trying to figure it out, and I've been playing with it for quite some time. But one of the things you'll notice is this is a data asset, and this data asset is the ability set for the frost grenade. That ability set has a couple of attributes in it that we specified. In this particular case, for the frost grenade, the three things that the data asset for weapons can do is it can grant use, it can add gameplay effects, and it can give you attribute sets. For the frost grenades, it's pretty simple. It grants you the ability to use the gameplay ability frost grenade, and it has an input tag associated with it. All of this is part of the index for a Lyra ability struct. Now, in this particular case, this actually references back to C++ code, so I'm not going to click on it, but that's the data asset. So the data asset is a list of maybe all of the abilities, the gameplay effects, and everything that happens as a result of having a frost grenade. You also might use a data asset for all of your default abilities. So for example, let's go back to here and let's just go up to, let's see if we can find, there it is. So the data asset for shooter core, oh no, that's the game feature stuff. That's not the one I'm looking for. Let's look for data asset. I spelled asset wrong. Of course, it doesn't find it. Let's take a look at our filters. None. Shooter core. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for the one that grants all the initial abilities. I believe it's the ability set. Let me see if I can find it. Ability set. Okay, so here's the ability set for the rifle. So for the rifle, when you get a rifle, you'll notice that this particular one, the data asset, gives you three different abilities. There's fire, reload, and auto reload. So that's an example of using something different in the data asset. Then what happens in this particular setup is, depending on what the weapon is, the weapon itself has a blueprint. That's often like what it does. It might be the visuals to it and so on. There's an item definition. In this case, for example, the item definition for the frost grenade, in this particular case, is a wild kind of data-driven, component-driven approach, but basically there's fragments to this, and the fragments in this particular case, there's a pickup icon. So the pickup icon is, what does it look like when it's on the ground, for example. There's the stats, what's the magazine size, the magazine ammo, the spare ammo, weapon, and all those kinds of things. And then you might have a quick bar icon. This is, what does the icon look like in your quick bar? Let's see, equipable item. This is just a equipable item that gets your weapon ID for your frost grenade. If we look at that, this is part of the ability sets for the frost grenade, the base, etc. So it is going to be a series of things, and a series of data basically that drives the visuals and everything based on how you're set up. So your data asset and your data table, generally your data asset is going to be used to collect all of maybe the abilities and effects and everything that are granted. Your data table might have all the lookup information of all of the damage stats, for example. Now, these are not hard set rules. I've seen it where a data table holds all of the different possibilities, and when you go to pick something up, it picks from the data table what you're going to get. The struct is literally just the structure of the data, so Unreal knows how to read it and will potentially have information in it. So like if we look at let's see if I can find a struct real quick that I define. I usually call them structs. Yes, so here's a melee combo ingredient struct. This struct literally just holds placeholders for each of the things that are possible for a melee combo ingredient. In this particular case, the montage the gameplay damage effect, whether it has AoE damage, whether it's stun immune, AoE radiuses, whether you can close the target gap, close target gap delay, and a damage multiplier. Now, all of this is used in our melee combos. Let's see if I can find one for you so you can see. So that just defines almost like the, that basically defines the recipe. And then over here, you'll notice in my gameplay ability for the melee combo, the base class, it has, you'll notice here, you see this montage to play, the AoE radius, the status, stun immune, close target gap, all of those things are part of this struct you can see here. So for example, stun immune is a boolean. If I look at where it's used, you can see stun immune right here. It's a checkbox now. So all the struct does is define the map, the roadmap of what the variables are available to me for anywhere I use it. The data assets collect all the information, and usually the tables will house the stats. For example, how much damage it does depending on the level, or how far you can lunge depending on the level, or how high you jump depending on your character type. So those are like kind of how they're set up. But ultimately, your use of data tables, assets, and structs will largely depend on the weapon and ability system that you're creating. Also, do not get demoralized as you're digging into the gas system. It is a beast of a system. There is so much in there, and it does so much stuff that I'm still wrapping my head around it. There's a lot of cool things about it. If you have other questions about it, or you're fighting something, feel free to hop in or post it in the comments or in the Discord server, and maybe we can help you troubleshoot specific questions for what it is you're doing. But hopefully that was helpful. All right, y'all. It looks like Lucian's final question to close us out kind of carried us across the finish line for this morning's stream. I am going to be posting new stream schedules, so keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. Like I said, we're going to be looking for, you should see the upcoming live streams get posted here shortly. Those are going to be 11:30. We're going to be moving to 11:30. Give that a try to see if it's more accessible to people to come by. I am going to keep digging into some of the things with dropping melee weapons versus grenades and things like that. Just troubleshooting my own stuff. I'll post an update once we get to our next stream. Let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. As always, if you're checking this out after the fact, thanks for taking the time to watch the stream. If you like what we're doing, spread the word. Tell your friends about it. Let them know that we're here to help answer questions. And I definitely don't know everything, but I'm also happy to stumble through. It's one of those things where if you ask a question, maybe we can figure it out together live. If not, I can take some time to figure it out. And if I don't know, fortunately, I work with a lot of really insanely smart people, and I'm not afraid to ask. So we can kind of try to track down answers. So I hope everybody has an amazing rest of your week. We should be back on track for our twice weekly Q&As. So keep an eye out for those and the schedule changes and everything else. Once again, my name's Kevin. Thanks for hopping in. And again, help spread the word if you like what we're doing. Sweet. Have a good one, everybody. See you on the next one.